Hello. Hi everybody. It's been quite a while. Welcome back to me, I guess, and to you. Let me know if the music balance is okay. I think it's maybe a little loud. So I'm just going to be doodling characters today, working on character designs. Step 1, reference. Look at these cute babies. Oh, that's a little gross. Dang. Looks like a sculpture or something. I'm gonna look for alligators instead. I'm wonderful. How are you guys? I like this image a lot. I can come back to that later. Okay. Oh yeah, the music, by the way, is from Abzu, which was released pretty recently by Giant Squid Games, which is a number of people from that game company and other places, and the music is by Austin Wintory, who, as you might guess, did the music for Journey. Okay, so I like gators because they have this really interesting head, like bony, wide, also kind of chubby shapes. Also like interesting eye placement right in the center of the skull. The way I go about finding music is I look for good game soundtracks because it's something that Twitch isn't going to mute. The good part about that is that there's like a variety. So if like you like EDM, there's a bunch of nice games that have EDM soundtracks. If you like orchestral, there's obviously tons of that. If you like rock, I'm sure there are games that have like a whole bunch of like vocalless rock tracks, like Guilty Gear has like a bunch of kind of speed metal-y stuff. I'll leave that for later. Or maybe not, who knows. Thanks, Pie Jumper. I've been doing good. Let's see. So there's this interesting thing I heard about that Pixar does with figure drawing, where they'll have these gesture poses, but they'll ask the artists to anthropomorphize the figure into an animal. So like if the model is doing like a stretching pose or something, they'll just be like, okay, so try to make it like a dog instead of a human, because it forces you to think about the story of the pose that the model's doing as opposed to focusing on the anatomy. Because at a certain point when you get good enough with anatomy, there are a lot of other things you can see in a figure. And I always thought that was a very clever kind of exercise. Because you have to communicate the same things, like yawning, or which that's what that is. And it makes you like, okay, well, what aspects of this pose contribute to the feeling of yawning, and how can I emphasize those in like a non-human character? I should look at actually a mouth open pose for these. Oh man, look at this fella. Oh, next slots for internship. It depends. I've done 2 of the 6 that I've already put out. Once all 6 of those are done, I will have to look at my schedule to see, like, because I have a bunch of other stuff I'm working on the side, but I really wanted to start the mentorships again, and it seems like there's a lot of demand for them. But it's definitely kind of like a touch and go kind of thing, which is partially why I'm not doing it in like a more official capacity or anything like that. Is it's easy for me if something happens and I need to like change my schedule, then I don't have to like cancel on people or anything like that. I only want to schedule them when I'm absolutely sure that I can afford the time to do it. And I feel bad, but like it's not my primary business, obviously, and so I can't set up infrastructure to do pre-orders or put people on a list, things like that. Like, I'd rather just open them over time. I'll try to announce beforehand, like the day before. If I know I'm going to announce them, I'll say that, you know, tomorrow around noonish my time, I will open up, you know, a certain number more slots. But so far they've been super great. Internship? Do you mean the mentorship? Yeah, so the mentorships are mostly, they're pretty short because when I ran them last time through Patreon, I had it set up so that people could either do 1 session per month or 2 sessions per month. And even the people who did 2 sessions per month, like once every 2 weeks, 2 weeks wasn't enough time, like between sessions. Like they had basically gotten so much this sounds like bragging or whatever, but the first session gave them so much stuff to work with, because it's not homework assignments. It's like, I kind of consider it getting people unstuck from where they're at. So it's not like, oh, it's a lighting mentorship. If you want to learn lighting, that's it. It's kind of custom tailored to everybody. And it's not so much like again, like a class, like a teaching session of like, oh, you want to learn lighting from me, so I'll teach you. It's more like, I look at your work and what do you want to do for a living, and where are you so far in achieving that goal, and what is preventing you from getting there, like whether it's artistically or whatever. And I try to help you along to figure out how to get there, because that's, to me, like that's what's most important. Is like, sometimes people think like, oh, well, I would love to learn characters from you, but they might actually be fine with characters and they need to learn something else, like perspective. And so I'll tell them like, here's here's very basics of perspective. I'll do paint-overs to say, like, here's how perspective can make your work better. Here's, like, great exercises to help you do it, and here's how you can build a portfolio that incorporates this. And here's, like, why it matters. So it's less of, like, there's no assignments, there's no, like, I mean, I give people, like, things they can do, like, actionable items that they can, you know, work towards. But it's not like, you know, here's a lecture I'm going to give you, and then I want you to see you apply this lecture specifically. It's more like, how can I help you get a job, basically. So actually it's not on Patreon anymore. It's I'm doing it through Gumroad, and the sessions are $60 an hour, which I know might seem like really expensive to a lot of people, but that's kind of on purpose because I don't want, like, it's kind of I mean, A, that's how much I charge when I do freelance work, but B, it is almost intentionally kind of to make sure the people who want that information are very serious about it. And so far, every single person who I've done a mentorship with has said, like, that was completely worth it. That was absolutely worth it. And plus, like, all the information is custom tailored, so it's not like I have like one kind of script that I read to every single person, and it's just like a novelty. I do my best to, like, once people sign up, I ask for a lot of biographical information, links to their work, so I can kind of know what we're going to talk about ahead of the session. Maybe it won't Sorry, I thought I heard someone knock at the door. I think it was someone just hammering something. When I'll stream publicly again, I'll probably stream tomorrow night, actually. Thank you for stopping by. Have a good night, or a good afternoon. It is just 1 hour. I don't right now let people buy multiple sessions, because honestly, I found that 1 hour is like the perfect amount of time. Again, I think I've had a couple people who are kind of like not sure that they're gonna how useful it's gonna be, but by the end of it, they're just like, wow, okay. Like they basically have, like, generally speaking, they'll have like a month or two or more. In one case, I kind of tried to help someone plan out like 2 years of their life, kind of thing, about like, okay, they want to achieve this goal. These are the most important things to achieve that goal and why. And I'll point them towards like other educational resources and stuff like that. But it really, I think doubling the session length doesn't double your value. Okay, someone's just doing some construction or something next door. Tips or advice for streaming. Always take a sip of tea before you answer a question. Then do it a second time. So this is really hypocritical coming from me, but consistency is key. Whether you have 5 viewers or 500, you have to have the same amount of enthusiasm. And I guess I like to think of like, what value do I offer people when I do these? So for example, like, I know a lot of streamers who paint, and this isn't a criticism, it's just kind of like they are kind of super cheery, super optimistic, and a lot more interactive than I am. What they'll do is they'll kind of start like on a painting they've already started on, like they're not really quote unquote starting from scratch. And I try to show like maybe like a little different, what I consider a different side of the process where I kind of tend often to start from scratch to emphasize that like it's kind of a struggle no matter how good or bad you are of an artist. It's always a lot of hard work to really draw anything. And it, you know, it does get easier as you get better, but for those who watched me when I streamed earlier this year, I think you know that I had a super hard time. Like the first hour of every stream would just be kind of like this pensive blank canvas time. And after about an hour and a half, I'd finally kind of settle into a groove. And that's because art isn't just drawing, right? Art is a lot of thinking. And well, I still try to make things fun and whatever. I can kind of consider I don't intend to stream for a living necessarily. I think I do it because there's demand for it and because I kind of like, I don't know, I like the attention. I like talking to people like this. There's not really another way to interact with people like this as an artist. It's super unique, and I appreciate that. And I think it's nice because I feel like I can offer people something. My workday schedule is wake up at 6, get ready for work, either drive or take the bus for about an hour. Well, bus is like an hour, drive is whatever. Get to work around 7. Generally, there aren't a lot of people in the studio at that point, and so I'll get a good amount of work done. I read a little bit of news and stuff like that, like get some coffee or tea or just water. Around 10, there's a couple like stand-up meetings where we discuss certain, like, you know, what people are up to during the day and who needs to be helped, how, and by whom. 12 o'clock, there's lunch. I go home around 4:30, and then I work on personal projects at home. And I go to bed around 10 or 11 or 12. Oh, thank you, Azuna. Favorite movies? Oh, that's easy. Let's see. I really like How to Train Your Dragon. Let's see. Die Hard is really good, especially for Christmas. Back to the Future. Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea, super good. Mostly animated films. Oh, Kubo was super good. Actually, I really like Paranorman. Paranorman's really good. Has some pacing issues, but the writing for me is like very nice. The studio doesn't let me call my own hours. We have core hours between, like, you have to work 9 hours a day, basically. Like, that's like a regular work day. 8 hours plus 1 hour of lunch. I come in at 7, so I get to leave at 4. A lot of people come in at 10 and leave at 6:30 or 7. If I could, I would probably work from like 6 to 3 just to avoid more traffic, but yeah, I think core hours are from 10 to 4, and so you have to come in before 10 and you can't leave before 4, and that's basically it. And it's just so that meetings can you know, function properly. I should probably talk a little bit about what I'm doing right here. So I don't know if you guys kind of saw just this process of this little guy, but I'm doing a lot of sketches like this, like these pretty loose sketches to build out some shapes and just have a little bit of a template there. And then for this one, I'm just slowly editing it and trying to, I kind of think of it as like reducing the shapes, like boiling them down into what's super necessary. In a lot of cases, controlling the silhouette. You can see right here how I'm using this one line that serves several purposes. This line right here. It turns the nose form down. The same line adds a layer of depth right there so that like you get an overlap, which is created by this small line right there. So that also pushes, it not only pushes the form down, but it pushes the plane like back in space, kind of like that. So I'm trying to find how I can boil these lines down, how I can like push these shapes, because in animation, design for animation, in not every case, but most cases, you have so few lines that every one becomes very important, and like each line can be changed to be, you know, say something very different, and so you want to make sure you're being as intentional as possible with each stroke. And not that it has to be clean, like pristine, but basically cleanliness or craftsmanship makes the lines easier to read, which lowers the like barrier to entry, I guess, for an audience. Especially in a stylized design. With a realistic design, like that's really well lit and stuff like that, I feel like you still need a lot of that clarity. But when something's stylized, yeah, you can push a lot further when it's clean. Not just because it's easier to draw, quote unquote easier, not just because it's less labor intensive to draw, but clarity of action, clarity of expression, clarity of, yeah, emotion. This is kind of wrong right here. So it's not that this, like, it's weird because on one hand, this looks like I am kind of polishing this gator head. It's kind of flat, but it's more because I feel like I have stuff to learn about shape design, and I feel like this is a good base for me to explore how I'm stylizing shapes These are not Kyle Webster brushes, no. These are not, I guess you can consider them warm-ups. It's more just practice themselves. Are shapes the most important thing to learn for drawing? I don't think there's a most important thing to learn for drawing. I think like everything kind of holds somewhat of an equal sway and also depends on where you want to go with it. Actually, so quickly to answer the other question about if they're warm-ups or if it's previs, I would think of this kind of like a marathon runner going for a jog, or not, or you know, whatever, going like practicing for a marathon, where it's not like the stretches that I'm doing before I go on the jog, nor is it the marathon itself, which it would be like previs for a project. It's a run where I'm conditioning, I guess, where I'm using it to play around and to push my understanding of things. So in a way it's an exercise, but it's not like a calisthenic of just like getting in the zone. But by taking time on this one head instead of just moving to another one, I'm doing things like discovering this little line combination that I just pulled right there. And I can think about like, well, how can I push that shape even further? Like if I do that, can I somehow drag this line all the way back there? Like, does that work? Can I, you know, if I change that line, what does it change about the character? Can I bring that all the way up to the eye? Like, what, you know, what are the limits of it? And then eventually it'll be kind of like, okay, well, can I push this jowl out even farther? And what does that win me as a design? But I do have like buns in the oven as far as projects are concerned. I just don't want to show any of that publicly until it's time. So yeah, shapes are not the most important thing necessarily. Like anatomy is, if you are someone who is like in your first couple years of art school, or you're not in art school yet, or you're not going to art school, I think anatomy is probably the biggest thing, because you can derive a lot of shapes and perspective from the study of anatomy. Like shapes for me I didn't understand how to play with them until I would say after art school. I understood what they were, but not how to use them until after I graduated from art school, because I had an education that didn't really know how to teach that. It kind of vaguely gestured at it, and it's like, shape design. Look at shapes. There's shapes there. Design them. But they didn't really go... I mean, there was like the lightest amount of most basic theory, but it wasn't really like a in-depth discussion of, you know, how to do it or what to consider. So here's a good example for clarity. Right now, this is kind of like a little bit, there's some like light marks there, it's a little bit muddy or whatever. So I'm going to clean that up to make sure that it's super clear. Also, I'm going to quickly post an ad on Twitter. All right. Whoops. Oh gosh, dang it. Let me go ahead and put that back. There we go. Sorry, I have a hotkey that I hit accidentally that switches that stuff. All right, where was I? Do you think a gap year is beneficial to art students? 100%. Wait, gap year? Well, yeah. I would say a gap year is most important before you go to college, even if that gap year consists of going to community college. If you have means, like, you know, like if your parents are well off and it's an option for you, traveling in your year between high school and college would be incredible. Like that, I think, is probably the best use of a gap year. I took a gap year. I graduated high school early, 1 year. And I managed to get an internship in Austin, Texas at a game studio. And that was basically my gap year. Was I spent 11 months interning on an MMO project that, you know, is now defunct. Like it was in 2007. And our publisher pulled our contract over Christmas break. It was pretty crazy. So this, I think I drew this shape a little bit ago, doesn't echo with this shape super well. So I'm either gonna, two choices are either make this interior shape echo that one or to pull that interior shape back. And I really like this kind of low curve. So I think I'm gonna try and pull that down. Here's another example where I can consolidate these lines. So I can have this one smooth line defining the back and then have the jowl kind of coming off that, which I don't know if that's a great decision. I could just as easily have it, you know, build an overlap there or something like that. But I kind of prefer streamlined. Also, I'm not in love with this shape down here. But it looks like it's pretty straightforward. Maybe I should make that. So I do this a lot too. I'll copy a layer when I want to make a change, but I'm not sure about it. Instead of relying on the undo history, I'll just make a duplicate. Definitely preferred it when it's convex like that, but maybe this needs to be its own distinct shape right there, and then connect to this one. Sorry, catching up on chat. Oh, hey, Nat. Yeah. Birds of prey. Yeah, gap years are pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna try and maybe do some expressions from this guy. See how that turns out. I think first I'll probably do a headshot. This is probably one of my weakest places is rotating organic shapes, especially stylized organic shapes, because you can't fudge it. Build eye socket. Sorry, I have to catch up with chat for a second. Aw. Do I have any good resources for learning character design? I can draw and paint well enough, but I have a hard time figuring out what makes a design look good. That's a big question. Let me finish. Okay. Character design. Yes, I use a Cintiq. Character design. So design, the way that I look at it, design is all about intent. Like design itself to me is kind of an abstract, like, mental idea. The drawing is kind of what you the tool that you use to express design. So you need to make sure that the tool fits the purpose. Like, you can't use a screwdriver on a lug nut, for example. So what design then, like the drawing part of design, is about is communicating I guess communicating that intent and understanding how it fits in context. Which plays, it's a little bit psychology, it's a little bit like biology, like human nature. The best tip I can give for learning character design is to animate. Like, if you want to do character design, and I've heard many character designers and many animators express this, even if you want to do it for like realistic stuff for like games or whatever, I think it's still important to try animating, because there's this good sentiment that I've heard Jake Parker use, which is make a product, not a portfolio. And what the point of that is that like a portfolio doesn't have any real constraints. It's just pretty drawings. There's no purpose that restrains them, that acts on them, that kind of adds value. Where when you're making a product, like for me, like a comic book, like a 6-page comic book is pretty good. Do a 6-page comic. It's kind of like animating in the sense that you're drawing things in different poses, but then it's not at all like animating in the sense like the planning and thought and labor behind animation forces you to streamline so much to make things read clearer, to understand how motion works, to understand like like how to display a thought process over a short period of time. What do you animate, Trill? Llama. because if you consistently animate, I mean, if you're also studying anatomy and stuff like that, but if you consistently, you know, and I think I should specify 2D animation. 3D animation is, it's not that it's worse or anything like that, but the act of drawing and 2D animation are kind of very central to each other, where 3D, like there's a large amount of 3D animators now in games especially who don't draw. Oh, cool. Yeah, so if you are a 3D animator who doesn't draw, I would suggest 2D animation, because while you, I'm sure, like have a good understanding of the principles of animation itself, it's more the act of drawing that forces you to understand, like, oh, like this design isn't working for these reasons. Like I need the character to do this, and the character can't do that. And you'll understand really quickly, like, is your sympathetic character like not sympathetic enough, or like is this character too X or too Y? Yeah, it's I don't know if you guys have seen that. Let's see. So not that I've, like, I haven't made an animated short yet. I occasionally think about wanting to do it really bad, like maybe like animating like an Adventure Zone clip or a Game Grumps clip. I think would be really fun. But this is like an animation I did a couple weeks ago that's just vaguely Zelda inspired. It's not complex, it's not great. It's there. But I learn a lot every time I do something like that. And it takes like, it takes like 4 hours or something like that, but it's super educational. I learn a whole lot about it, about everything, and I carry that information back here for sure. But yeah, I feel like aside from the basic idea of shape design, where shapes have kind of connotative language within them, where sure, why not, I'll do this. Oops. This is a little too spiny. There we go. So already this one feels, a certain way relative to the one right next to it. Similarly, so this is a triangle. If I were to round most of these surfaces off, you know, those two using the same base are very different. In square, this one is kind of square. Like, I think part of the square part is just making things broader. So I would maybe even like move the whole draw up or something. So one is stable, one is soft, one is sharp. And that's kind of the idea.
All right.
Sorry, I'm watching that clip someone posted. Oh yeah, yep, pretty much. What do I use to animate in 2D? I use Photoshop and I use Flash. The thing I just showed earlier, that was Flash, which is now called Animate. But animating in Photoshop is super buggy. But you can do it. It's possible. Okay, maybe I'm just gonna draw another gator. I should practice doing expressions though for this guy. I don't know. I'm also lazy. Maybe I'll do a full body. Maybe I'll turn him into a character. That's weird. Oh, there we go. The sound just patched out for a second. All right. There's one piece of advice that I've always really liked that came from my friend Russ, who's a really, really good character designer. And he said, if something is super thin, if something's thin, make it super, super thin. If it's, thick, make it super thick. He's like, push things like farther than, like break things first, like push them farther than they can possibly go, and then wind it back in. So like always, like even with this guy, I could probably do that a little bit more. Like just say like how pouchy can that chin thing get, and maybe he's even taller than this. And maybe his legs are even shorter. That gets into weird territory really quick, though. Maybe he has tiny arms. Little T-Rex arms. Maybe the head can be even stretched out a little bit more. And the tail. Hello, half your class. I hope there's a teacher who's I hope there's not a teacher who's lecturing right now, because I definitely in school there was definitely a couple classes where half the kids in the class would be playing StarCraft or Left 4 Dead while the teacher was lecturing. One time someone forgot to put their headphones in and they started the game, and you just heard the valve sound, and he like instantly like closed the laptop. He's like, sorry, like watching a game trailer, and the teacher just completely ignored him, moved on. And about 10 minutes later, he tried the same thing and still forgot to turn the volume down, I guess, and you could hear it again. and it's really funny because the whole class period, like, you could just hear the sound, which was just them clicking, like crazy, and the teacher definitely 100% knew what was going on, and it's just like, well, whatever, it's your guys' future. Wasn't a bad teacher either, which was kind of frustrating. Okay, make these feet a lot longer. I feel bad because now it's just a generic standing pose. He's not like doing anything at all. But yeah, let's see if we can fix that now. No idea what this is. Maybe I should just focus on making it a really thoughtful static pose. kind of like picking his fingers, like a little nervous tick. Or her, I guess. Didn't really think about the gender too much. Yeah, I like the longer snout. Okay, now we'll use this overlay as our underlay. Maybe I'll tilt that down a little bit. I think I can probably just slide that out, and it doesn't look too bad. Need to relook at that fat distribution on the arm. Link. Okay. They're just like these tubes. It's I think it's important to note how much I'm erasing like these strokes to make sure that they are, for lack of a better term, perfect. That they say what I want them to say. Intentional is probably a better term, actually. You know, I do my best not to let them just sit. Like, I don't just make one and go good enough. I kind of have to hit exactly the curve that I want, that defines the anatomy the right way, that defines, you know, contributes to the overall gesture the right way. It's all of Control Z. It's a lot of going in and re-editing things I've already drawn. Always questioning what I've already put down. Erasing in traditional pencil and paper terms. So here's where I second guess and say, like, is that added dimension worth it? Or is it better to have it completely flat? I'm going to vote on completely flat. Have a good day, Night Siege. Song requests? Oh no, sorry, I don't have any bots or anything. I don't know. I'm not a power Twitch user. I do kind of want to switch though. I'm going to probably change over to, in honor of Rockstar's recent teaser. Hmm. Thank you, hamster. I'm glad crocodiles can be so inspiring. think there's also definitely a lesson in here about, like, not settling. Like, you guys, I mean, for people who've been here for the whole, how long has it been? Like, hour and a half? Like you saw, I did, like, a whole bunch of head sketches, and then I cleaned this one up, and then I started building a body off it, and then I get to the body, and I'm like, oh, wait, this pose doesn't really say much. And then I change the head that I spent all that time on to fit the body. And I think that's, like, a pretty good metaphor for creative stuff in general, but, like, writing is that way a lot, where, like, you start out writing one thing, and at a certain point you hit this impasse where you realize that what you're actually writing has to be another thing. And it's not the thing you started writing, because it's almost like the creation took on a life of its own, right? Which is kind of what happened here. So to make this more powerful, I'm like, well, I did all this work, but, like, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. And so, you know, I can use it as a springboard, which is awesome. You know, a lot of thought work is done here that I can carry over here, which is good. But it's always worth it to go back in, like dive back in to the deep end and fix the whole thing, as opposed to just fixing like tiny parts to try to make something work when it isn't working. Sometimes, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that term, like kill your darlings. Like, sometimes you just gotta take an axe to the drawing board. Oh yeah, common beginner's mistakes in character design. Sure. Always draw everything. One of the biggest things I see, even in kind of experienced artists, are they hide the things they're afraid of. They'll hide feet, they'll hide hands, they'll hide faces. They won't draw from certain angles, or they will kind of fudge things to make sure they don't have to draw something because it's hard. And I think consistently the people who I've seen who have blossomed into amazing, original, like talented creators are the people who their hands, like when you would look at their early work, you would always see two hands. You would always see them doing something different. You wouldn't see them in an idle pose. They'd always, you know, have an important place. And it's one of those things where it is like every part of the body is so essential to storytelling, but the hands in particular, hands and faces and like feet, yeah, actually you can do a lot of storytelling. Like even here the knees are kind of pointing together, you know, which the feet should be helping to indicate a little bit better maybe. But the brave people who always try to draw everything, I feel like that's the mentality you want to be in. So if you're a beginner and you think something is hard to draw, that's the best reason to learn to start practicing it. Also, inking. There's a big mistake of, like, okay, so when you polish something, when you ink it and give it the full treatment and you invest 20 hours into a thing, what it tells me as a viewer is that every choice in there is intentional. And so if you have choices in there where like the anatomy or the perspective is bad, but you inked it anyway, it tells me that you kind of have confidence in your ignorance, which is not a great place to be. It doesn't mean don't polish stuff, because it's important to always like be finishing stuff, because finishing stuff itself is an important skill. But people get really caught up in technique and in like how to make something look final. The best thing you can do is just focus on fundamentals all the time, because the polish will get there. Like you will learn to polish stuff. But like if you are drawing over a hand and you know the hand is bad, then stop, erase it before you ink it, and fix the hand first. And like there's one piece in school that like was basically my breakthrough, like epiphany piece with hand drawing, because I erased the hands over and over and over and over again until I was like, all right, I have to draw a good hand, and I finally was able to draw like one good hand, and it was decent. But ever since then, drawing hands has been a lot more fun and a lot easier, because I took so much time to like study them and understand them. And it's like I had done hundreds or maybe even thousands of studies of my own hand, of other people's hands, of master painting hands. But it's different when you're inventing a hand and you do it wrong and you have to erase it and fix it and fix it and fix it. And, you know, using reference is a good way to help, but settling for something you know is bad, like your goal is to draw as good as you can, and then you become more critical, so you have to meet that goal. You become more critical, so you have to meet that goal. Like, you have to keep getting better and better. But if you know that you're drawing something badly and you just assume you're going to get better, that's the biggest beginner mistake, is assuming that it's just going to get better, that it's not something that you have to work for. Like, if you are bad at something, it's a sign that you don't understand it. If you're bad at drawing noses from a certain angle, it's not just like, that's just my personality. That's you being bad at drawing noses. And you need to say, okay, well, clearly, like, I have trouble with this. So what can I do to address that trouble? Like, how can I fix that problem? And in a way, I feel like that should breed its own excitement about learning, where you're not viewing it as like, oh, I'm never gonna get better. You're viewing it as like, okay, like, what are these actions I can take that will do the most good for my set of knowledge? This is Red Dead Redemption, by the way. Fudging acceptable when you're doing concept sketches. I've been trying to get good at concept art and seeking conflicting statements about fidelity of drawings you actually do for a game. There's a lot of different kinds of drawings you do for games. It depends what you mean by fudging. There are some times when idea is king and you're not trying to draw a good perspective, and so good perspective doesn't matter. There are other times where perspective is absolutely central to what you're trying to describe to someone, in which case you can't fudge it, no. Yeah, can you be more specific with that question? Yeah, what Sputnik said is actually pretty great. There's a lot of people who do things they call concept art, but 3D artists don't like it because they're like, I can't draw that. And then, you know, they'll try to model it and someone will be like, that's not what I painted at all. And it's like, well, you didn't really paint, you painted a bunch of random shapes. And then they'll tell the 3D guy, it's like, well, you need to get better understanding my shapes or something like that. Not that dickish, but yeah. As a concept artist, you are first and foremost a communicator. You are someone who is attempting to create consensus on the way something looks with as little cost as possible before it goes into 3D. And so, yeah, things that are essential to that communication: anatomy, perspective, composition, shape design, etc., etc. So yeah, like I was saying before, I think it's actually pretty cool how, yeah, this drawing led to that body, which then led to that head. And it's funny, like, I don't know that I would have drawn this on its own, but getting a clearly better, like, just letting that path kind of go. It is important to note that this is not for anything. This is random. And I think this process, this kind of intuitive stream of consciousness process, is not bad for this scenario where I'm just kind of streaming for fun for you guys and I'm kind of teaching myself character design. If you're on the job, you should have a process that, I mean, this, you know, it's not that this is a bad process. Obviously, like, this kind of came out okay, but you should be operating more on like, okay, I have to communicate blank. And then you do like loose sketches to like get to this point, but a lot sketchier of a stage first, and then decide from there. I need to really emphasize that, like, this is not the way that I work at work, and this isn't really even the way that I work on jobs, like freelance jobs. This is just kind of like a stream of consciousness process for exploration, which obviously has its own value, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. But it's important to know that this is not like what it looks like when this is not necessarily what it looks like when a character designer is designing stuff. Oh yeah, another beginner tip. Always overlap everything, or rather, treat everything with depth. So if you have a oh, I know. You have a shoe here. A lot of people will draw the kind of like lace lane, and they'll just kind of draw flat laces in there. It is 100% worth it for you to take the time to actually draw the laces with thickness on them, because when you get good at it, it doesn't take that long. It takes like it takes seconds, but it will add so much value to your drawing. It's one of those things that people think that they can get away with neglecting, and for like certain thumbnails you can, but it takes so little time to do it right once you're good at it that there's no reason that you shouldn't take that time. Like it, especially if your goal is to make a good drawing, drawing it flatter, drawing it just to go faster isn't going to help you. Also, if I look very concerned right now, it's only because I'm trying to mimic this expression so I can feel out what it feels like. Also, I'm gonna make this arm bigger. I'm gonna try something, because gators have really wide bellies, but then it tapers back down. And I want to see if I can make it more gator and less human by having that indicated. I think that adds to it. It's a little weird. I'll have to keep looking at it. Difference between concept art and visual development, there's no difference. They do the same thing, just for different fields. Animation prefers visual development. Games prefer concept art. Oh, so I usually, at work, and I'll answer this again, Curry, if you come back, if you didn't hear this. Can't figure out whether that's the you want to keep. I'll answer that in a second. So most of what I do at work is line work. A whole lot of it is drawing over 3D models already, or actually, let me pull it up. I'll show you what it looks like. So here is my ArtStation page. So stuff I do at work a lot looks like this. Well, these are kind of look and feel pieces. These are when they're actually making the level. I do line work like that. Actually, wait, is there more? Oh yeah. Here. So I do this piece first, based on like them kind of describing the stuff they want, and then this is like over the 3D model. And it's just kind of making these designs more specific. A lot of pipes, a lot of grates, a lot of grate pipes, a lot of overhangs, a lot of chunky space doors, chunky space pipes, chunky space, wow, rafters, no, girders, whatever, chunky space glowing stuff, vents, ominous. That's not work stuff. Ugh. Chrome, you are not having a good day. So what happens when you drew something and can't figure out whether that's the look you want to keep? So that's kind of what design is. It's you have a context that you're working for, and the clearer you know the context, that's what you're evaluating your design against. It's not just if something looks good or not. Like if something looks good or not, that has to do with anatomy, perspective, like form, description. And like in kind of parts of shape design and polish, because the question in games and film and visual development isn't to make something look good, it's to make something look right. And so basically, if the concept tells you a lot about the character, or the design rather tells you a lot about the character, like when you look at Hiccup in comparison with the other Vikings, like it's pretty clear. Like his design is a really good kind of, it's, you know, How to Train Your Dragon doesn't have my favorite visual style. It's mostly like writing and story and stuff like that, but the design's still very good. But you know, Hiccup, like his hair is kind of down and matted. Like if Hiccup's hair was spiky and tall and like, or like a pompadour or something, it wouldn't really make sense. Or like even a mohawk, like it's, he's not trying to fit into that, you know, what the other Vikings are. He's just kind of like a limp, intelligent, thoughtful Viking. So the emphasis isn't on his brawn or on masculinity. It's on internal or intellect. Do you think quick sketches you actually do at work worth putting on his portfolio? It depends. I put stuff in my portfolio when it I feel that it helps describe my skill set that I want to promote, and that's about it. There's a lot of work that I don't show because I don't feel like it it doesn't promote a skill set that I want to show. I think a lot of art directors would appreciate rougher stuff that is to help guide the team rather than super clean marketing pieces. Is there a way to practice drawing lines? I think what you mean to ask is like, what am I looking for? Like, what makes a line good? And I think the two answers to that are, one, confidence. That's not an F. Confidence, which is the act of, like, I was on an art forum when I was a teenager, and one of the crits I got right away was about line confidence, where my drawings used to be kind of like this, like back and forth, or, you know, if I was drawing a face, it would be kind of like, it was hard not to do this because you're scared and you don't know if what you drew is right. You're just kind of guessing. And so you tend to draw like this. And even if what you're drawing, like, turns out good, the drawing itself lacks clarity and technical stuff. That's not to say that you can't do that once you have achieved a level of mastery, right? Where, like, that can definitely go into a style. But it should also be noted there's a difference between drawing a circle like this and drawing a circle like this. Where this one is still confident, you're still like, okay, that's where I want the shape to be, and maybe you're running over a little bit, or you're trying to describe something very quickly, and so you'll try and hit that line a couple times. It's very different from what they call petting the line, which I can't do badly, I guess, anymore, but like that. So when you're out drawing at a cafe or life drawing, one really good thing to do is a continuous contour. Trying not to pick your pencil up as much as possible. And you can even, I remember calling it a cross contour, which is where you're defining interior forms with the same contour line that you're using for the silhouette. But that builds line confidence really well, and it's pretty straightforward. It's difficult to do, especially when you're beginning, but that's super important, and that'll help you learn the value of a line. The other one is going to be typography, like real serious, like look up typography classes or take them if you're in school, because what they teach you is the difference between these two. Like, these lines are not equal, not even close to equal, not even close. And this one is, even farther away, and this one is even farther in the other direction. Typography teaches you the value of graphic shapes and of intention, and it teaches you how thoroughly you can control what comes out of your wrist, because you can control it an insane amount. And once you realize that when you draw something badly, it's not like an accident. It's not like you slipped. It's just that you don't know the answer, and you weren't paying enough attention when you drew it. Yeah, so I guess like the key to drawing good lines is making sure that they are, like, you know what you want out of the line. I'm not saying that when I started this stream that I pictured this and was tracing over it in my brain like there's an image there, but rather I know when a certain thing is missing, like let's say the jaw is missing, and I'm like, okay, I know that I want the jaw to come down to here, then head up to here, and then go that way. And so I will then draw a line that does that. Like, that is intention. That's controlling your line. So, and then I might be like, okay, that didn't work out, so maybe I want it to come all the way down to here, and then come up right there, and maybe I want it to bow right there in the middle. So come down, bow right there in the middle, come up. And you don't always have to do it like, you know, I could do one line there, one line there. But the point is that I'm not just like drawing a random line. I am controlling this thing to the nines. Like, I am going to town on this line to make sure that it is hitting what I needed to hit. That's controlling your design. That's intention. It's confidence. Hope that answers your question. How do you go out studying anatomy? You draw from life. Go to cafes, go to life drawing, figure drawing, get a whole bunch of books. I don't have any right here on my... Well, yeah, okay. Here is literally the first... This is the first art book that I ever owned. Anatomy for the Artist by Sarah Simblett. It is an incredible, incredible book. It has some good photos. It has tons of amazing drawings with like little vellum overlays on it. I drew this book probably 2 to 3 times over when I was 15. And the kicker is that I just drew it. I wasn't actually paying attention, meaning I didn't carry the knowledge with me. I was assuming that by copying it, I was kind of putting it in muscle memory, which I think is a thing that a lot of people tend to do. I actually had a conversation about this on Twitter with Kevin Hong recently. But anatomy is not muscle memory. Like there are certain like lines that are muscle memory, like stylistic things that you do because they're familiar. But anatomy and lighting and perspective. They all contribute to this like internal mental model that you have of form, especially for anatomy of like a human body. And it's almost, if you think of like a character design creator, what you're trying to do by studying anatomy is to build a character design creator in your head so that you can move noses up and down. You can change the nose feature shape, like between ethnicities or between just like, you know, anything, whether it's like a up nose, down nose, long, like hook shape or whatever, they have the crook in it, whether it's flatter, wider, narrower, longer, knobbier. It's not that people have drawn all those noses so many times that they just remember how to draw them from every angle. It's that they built a model, they understand the structure, and then they add modifiers to it, that they observe modifiers that they can apply to their internal mental model. So when you're studying anatomy, understand that you need to pay attention to it. You need to put it in a context and understand that you are building a little maquette in your head that you're going to be referencing for the rest of your life when you draw. Again, it's not a literal like I'm not superimposing a mental image onto this canvas that I'm drawing, but when I draw, like I do things like, okay, I know I want it to face down at this angle. So I know that the nose is going to be super long, and I know that it has to be a certain breadth. And also, this correlates to a certain perspective. And so I know the perpendicular part of that perspective is this way. And so I know that it has to be like a certain, breadth that way. And I know that these things are going to pop up, so I have to like consider what those forms look like. And the thing is, it looks like a construction set when you think about it. But when you put it down, you're kind of, this is the understanding that you have. You're not just guessing like an amazing piece of line or something. You are consciously referencing your internal mental model and rotating it in your head so that you can see, you know, every side of it. That is a derpy but funny little sketch. So that's what learning anatomy is about. Okay, more questions. Will I stream this Wednesday as well? No, sorry. I go back to work on Wednesday. Do I mostly draw from my wrist? Nope, elbow. But that also doesn't... I guess it kind of matters. Drawing from your arm is really good. It gets you wider motions, but it's not a big deal. Like, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say it's not a big deal. It's not gonna change your life, you know. I think by drawing like as you get better at drawing, those kind of habits will come naturally. But I do draw from the elbow. I think when people say draw from the elbow, it's trying to promote that line confidence. Like when you draw from the wrist, when you plant your hand on the paper and you draw from your wrist, you tend to get this because your range of motion is smaller, where the elbow or the shoulder has like, you know, a much broader range. When you're drawing this small, when you're drawing things like this, you're not drawing from your elbow, you're drawing from your wrist. But when you're figure drawing on a giant pad of paper, you are drawing from your shoulder. When I'm drawing the Cintiq, I tend to draw from my elbow. Like when I'm doing big descriptive lines, I'm drawing from my elbow, yeah. Is designing without context a bad idea? Yeah, I think Lidzel's right, actually. If you're designing anything, you don't have a specific context, but you are putting it in some kind of context. It's not bad to design without a context, like quote unquote without a context. You just won't get as much out of it. The thing is, so if people ask, like, okay, good design, good drawing, how do you know that it's good? What makes it good? What makes the design good? Because a design functions well, a drawing can look good. Like the craft of the drawing can look good. The design can be clever. The design can be appealing. The design can be interesting. And it's those things that make it good. It's how it fits in the context that makes it good. So, like, this character doesn't really have a context. Well, doesn't have a large world scale context, but I've created a context in the character itself, like, in terms of its action. So, the knees, the hands, the eyes, and the general posture all contribute to the context of a guilty or nervous character. And they all describe that, and so there's a harmony between, like, the aspects of the character. So in that sense, while I don't really have a major overall context, I still feel that this character fulfills its own implicit place in its own world, I guess. It fulfills its own context. I'm not saying that I'm, like, a good designer, but, like, that's, I guess, how this functions, how I see this functioning as an artist. Yeah, so that's the question I ask a lot, is when I think about how do I know that this is good or not, I try to understand, okay, what makes something good? Like, how do we evaluate good? Because we know good when we see it, but that's not enough. You need to understand why something is good if you want to make good things. Sure, people can be intuitive about it and they'll make good things without being able to describe why, but that doesn't mean that does not mean that there is not a reason that what they made was good, just because they don't know how to explain it. There we go. Yeah, that line, getting rid of that line, that was not a bad line, but I don't think it actually had much of a purpose. I think I was confusing this kind of shoulder girdle line with, like, another wrinkle. Like, maybe I could put a line there, but I don't think it really matters. That, yeah, I like it. I think it echoes this chin motion of pushing back the kind of blubber there. Oh, I can color right now. I'm about to color pretty soon. I was thinking about throwing a costume on there, but I'm not sure about that yet. Though I should save it. Call that Gator. Hmm. Oh, what do you do when you're in that in-between where you keep relying on construction lines to create? I want to draw in straight ink for Inktober, but it's difficult to create that image in one go without those underlines. Just don't draw in straight ink. I think if you're drawing in straight ink, then just do pattern recognition. But if you're trying to draw something specific, then don't draw it in straight ink. Like, the point of Inktober is, like, inking, I consider inking a process to move from your idea to your kind of asset. So that the guidelines, the construction lines, are to help you flesh out the idea and make sure it's correct. And then the ink is to treat it as a final, beautiful thing. So the ink, starting with ink, trying to make a final, beautiful thing with, without editing, without erasing or anything like that is if you're having trouble with it, I mean, it's kind of the point. I feel like you'd only do that on purpose to deal with that struggle and to make interesting things happen. Yeah, I know. I'm debating. Just want to. Sure. You know what? I'll go full Rango. I'm gonna deck him out in Western wear, or her. Can be her. Yeah, why not? Except my friend Claire is gonna kill me because I don't know anything about historical Western wear. Time to do some research. All right, sorry guys. I will still try to answer questions, but there's enough now that like I'm not drawing as much, and I feel like to keep an audience, I kind of want to keep drawing. So pardon me if I don't answer your questions as much as you wish. I might just do like a cartoony costume that's not referenced at all and just make it kind of vaguely Western. Research is important, but like, honestly, for the stream, it's super boring because I'm just going to do it all off screen. Actually, what time is it? It's 1 o'clock. Maybe I won't get... Oh, I feel like I have to give it a custom, though. Kind of just want to paint it and call it a day. We'll see. Alright, now I have to do some research to figure out how this holster is going to work. Nope, come back here. How do I go about distribution of details? Only put them where necessary. I know that sounds arbitrary. But that's, I mean, I look at a lot of classic Disney stuff, Milk Call, etc. When you think about it, if you have a person lots of detail, some detail, a bit of detail, but less than there. So your eye, like a lot of this stuff, acts as visual like pathways leading to the points of detail. You put detail where things are functional. You don't want to think of detail as like a seasoning. I mean, I think of it more like a dashboard of an airplane, where you have so many little switches and things like that. I guess like they still only put it where they need to. They just have to put a lot in there. That's maybe not the best example. I guess maybe like a car is a better example, where like you have a setup that is built specifically like so that your eyes, you know, go right to it. It's not like a whole bunch of little rectangles that are all, you know, speed, whatever. Like they emphasize things. They put things big front and center, etc. That's not really a good answer. But yeah, I guess I don't think of detail as like, this needs more detail. Almost always it's, this needs less detail. I think it can often be used as a way to try to cover up bad fundamentals. So that's something to be aware of. Yeah, I think eventually the better you get at drawing, the more detail distribution just becomes a matter of like logic and reality, where you put wrinkles in clothes, which I think some would consider a detail, but it's to describe the reality, like the thickness of the material and how it's warping around the body. You know, it's like me adding these wrinkles to these hands isn't like, oh, I'm trying to add superfluous detail. It's just me drawing hands. So I think that's the big takeaway is, whoops, I shouldn't be doing that because that's not a piece of clothing. I got so caught up in answering the question. Yeah, don't think of detail as something you add. Think of it as something you take away. And I think that's how I would say that's a good rule of thumb for detail distribution. So yeah, thicknesses. I don't consider thicknesses detail because they're basically an echo of a shape that already exists. What you're doing is creating depth. If you make it flatter, that can be a style, but that's more saying like you don't want to show as much dimension rather than making a more elegant design. The gun holster is a little bit more. Yes, this song. Yes. As if I didn't know it was coming up. Jose Gonzalez.
Step in front of a runaway train. so far away. It's so far away. Cold wind blows into the skin. Can't believe the state you're in. It's so far away. It's so far away.
So adding detail here would be like, on my reference, there's an additional belt to tighten this. That's kind of a detail, and I kind of want to add it because it adds more authenticity to this thing. Though for animation that would be terrible to have to animate it, so maybe I'll streamline it more, but nah, I'll leave it there. It also has a whole bunch of buttons and it has a metal emblem on it. I will probably do this, like kind of tool that curve a little bit so that it has some more heft to it. Enough to try to make it real without making it overkill. But yeah, dimension is never, I would not ever consider dimension to be a detail. I consider that form, like form description. I think that is one of the difficult parts of explaining some of this stuff, is that it was so hard to learn. And it does become intuitive in a sense where, like, at first, like, when you start drawing, it's kind of like one thing, and then it splits into anatomy and lighting and perspective and shape design and graphic design and all these things. And then anatomy splits into like head anatomy, chest anatomy, leg anatomy. But then those, as you get better at them, they start to merge back together. And lighting is like, there's light and there's shadow and there's bounce light and there's ray casting and shadow casting and material, specularity. And again, those things start to consolidate back into one model again. And same with perspective. It's like there's, you know, horizon lines, vanishing points, station points, 2-point, 3-point, you know, camera length, like doing things to scale. And they all seem like all these threads, but they end up spinning back together. And so like detail distribution is one of those things that I used to consider, like, be concerned about a lot, because I was drawing arbitrary hardware, like sci-fi mechanical garbage that didn't mean anything. And so I didn't know, like, how do I know how much detail I'm supposed to put there? And there's not a guide to it. In school, they just said figure it out, which is kind of stupid. For me, it was that came down to like learning that, oh, function. You want to put detail where there is function, because that's what you want people to look at. You know, it's kind of the same here. Like this belt, the key detail in the belt is the functional piece.
And now I know the only compass that I need is the one that leads back to you. And I know the only compass that I need, oh, is the one.
All right, I think that does it for the clothes. Oh no, the hat. Need to draw the hat. Let me make sure.
And the burning blisters
That's a good
on my
hat.
feet will call to hold me as I'm close to fall. Away from the home of your arms I stray, off the radar and into harm's way. Now I know.
Oh, thank you, Nailfa. I appreciate that. That's a good compliment.
That I need, oh, is the one leads back to you.
Whoops, no. No. Okay. Alrighty.
Yeah, coffee waves the hand again, coaxing letters from the pen, but words just sit like empty scribbles, such empty caffeinated riddles. Now I know the only compass that I need is the one leads back to you. Now I know the only compass that I need is the one leads back to you.
Alrighty. I think this lady's ready to color.
A dead man's gun and Joe looking down the sights. Your heart is worn and the seams are torn, and they've given you a reason to fight. And you're not gonna take
I'm gonna skip this song. Sorry, Ashter Command.
Oh, bury
There we go.
me not on the lone prairie where the coyotes wail and the wind blows free. And when I die,
Tangent.
don't bury me.
I see you. I see you there, you tangent.
Neath the western
Get out.
sky on the lone prairie. Oh, bury me not on the
So it's not the
lone
cleanest, but those will
prairie.
do fine.
These words came soft
Alright.
and painful.
So it's not the cleanest ink ever, so I can't really magic wand tool it. But that's okay. This won't take too long. Maybe I can. Let's see. Let's see what happens.
On his dying bed.
Oh, sweet deal. I closed all my lines up just nice. That's awesome. Alright. Select inverse. Oops, pardon me.
But we buried him
Select modify.
there on the
Contract.
lone prairie,
Oh, no. Oh, wait.
where the rattlesnakes hiss
Select.
and the wind
Pro.
blows free.
No. Select.
In a shallow grave,
Expand by 2.
no one to grieve. Neath the western sky,
Inverse.
on the lone
nope.
prairie.
There we go.
Oh, bury me.
Yeah, saved me a lot of little time there.
On the lone prairie, these words came soft and painfully from the pallid lips of a youth who lay on his
die in bed at the break of day. On his dying bed at the break of day.
I have no idea what the grow function does that other things don't. Oh, right, that's what that is. Mm. Color time. Bonner Saga is awesome. I feel like... Also, thanks for stopping by, Frank Summers. Oh, people are doing stories about it. That's cool. Bonner Saga, I think the first one, I don't know exactly what the animation looks like in the second one. The first one, the roto was pretty good in the sense that I enjoyed it. I feel like it could have been better. Like you can still really tell, like I think there's still kind of a stiffness to the movements a little bit. But I mean, they did an amazing job with a small team, and like I'm not gonna knock them for that tiny thing. But visually, like the Ivan Earl stuff was really clever to use that style, and I feel like they did really good things with it. They didn't just copy his compositions and stuff directly, which is like I think the risk that is typically run in those cases. But it's funny because I've definitely seen a lot of imitators who have either straight up ripped the Bonner Saga's compositions, or they've like, oh, Ivan Earl, good choice, and they'll just use Ivan Earl's work almost. I mean, not literally use his work, but they'll more or less just take it wholesale without worrying about like adding anything to that conversation. Oops. Could definitely clean up some of these edges. It's important to treat your shadow shapes the same way you treat your other character shapes, because they all work together to help inform the design. Alrighty. Now I think we can move on. Oops. Actually, it just occurred to me. All right. Think that's it. Thank you guys very much for tuning in, especially on like this midday weekday stream. It was a pleasure having all of you. I might do this again tomorrow night, so good luck. I guess the next couple days. Whatever. Tune in tomorrow if I'm doing it. I will probably announce on Twitter tonight or a little beforehand tomorrow. Probably around 5 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Pacific time, maybe. We'll see. Thank you very much. Subscribe. Remember to subscribe if you want to get notifications for when I do this. It's still sporadic. I may start doing it regularly again like I used to. I'm not sure yet, but you know, keep your eyes open, ears open, in case that announcement ever comes. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and have a good evening. Bye-bye. Crap. Where's the stop button? There.